are what make us us. And those stories filter through what we do professionally and what we do personally with our families and our loved ones, and what we do with our animals, and how we walk our truths, and how we walk the fine line of choices that we need to make but don't want to, or are resistant to, are in denial. And I would say that what I do is a culmination of working with the stories of grief, the stories of the traumatic imprint and how that imprint forever changes us, and that we ultimately land in the what Joseph Campbell called the inmost cave. And it's where we grapple with the parts of ourselves that we have met along the way that, create obstacles, and that we must like face off and reckon with and have conversations with, so that we can flourish, so that we can grow, and we can take energy that might be filled with jealousy or envy or lack of confidence, and we grapple with those parts of ourselves, so that we can come out forever changed. And and so what I do is I help people be in the inmost cave in the safest way possible, and understanding that whatever got us to the cave, that we are forever changed just because we're in the cave, and that the idea is to find ways to get out of the mire that keeps us down. And I've lately, within the last year, been grappling with the idea that how are we imprisoned, and how do we find ways to liberate. And so I would say that my passion is now about finding ways to liberate, and finding ways to have our truth without losing ourselves, but finding ourselves.
Always like how you put that. It always sounds very inspirational and it's so full of passion because as 2026 comes about, there are things that we definitely need to let go and there's things that we need to continue to let in. So I guess my first question is when it comes to New Year's resolutions, is this something that we still need to do?
Well, it depends on how one defines a resolution. Because we make promises like, oh, I'm going to go get that gym membership and I'm going to work out for the next year and I'm gung ho and I'm going to do this. And about 2 months in, it stops, if we even get there. So that's a resolution. It's a promise made, but maybe it's not a promise we believe. So, how do you define resolution? What if it's there are promises that I'm going to make, or there is one promise I'm going to make to myself, and that promise is, and I'm going to continue to honor that promise with a ritual that I do every single day, or a reach out that I do every single day, or a kindness that I do every single day. And that's my promise. Rather than it's a resolution, it's a promise to your soul. And do I think those are important? Yeah, I do.
The last time I made a resolution was a number of years ago, and I don't remember if I've ever made one as an adult. You know, children, right? We make lots
Yeah,
of resolutions.
yeah.
But when you described it as that, I've made a promise to myself every single year, but I've done it throughout the year. I didn't wait until 11:59, December 31st, the year prior to say that, okay, I have 1 minute to come up with this. You know,
All those
we
factors.
talked about, and I shared that. I said that last time we spoke, I was going to get rid of places, people, and things.
That's right.
And I worked so hard in 2025 to do that. And it all came to a beautiful close, beautiful fruition, probably around November-ish, the last 2 or 3 months of 2025. I was the happiest I've been in a few years because one, I knew that it wasn't going to impact me negatively anymore. And two, I was able to create a boundary that even if it was going to hit the fan, and in some cases it did, I was still protected and I wasn't going to go back to that person. Are those the types of promises you're talking about?
Absolutely. And they're monumental. What you're talking about though is that you continue to make a promise to yourself and you don't wait until December 31st at 11:59, that it's an ongoing piece of commitment to the self. And that ongoing commitment is so important. And it's actually having a relationship with yourself 24/7 and listening. I call what you're talking about an embodied curiosity. And that is actually the first strategy to this liberation protocol of embodied curiosity, which is continuing to ask yourself, what do I need? How am I going to achieve what I need? How do I feed my soul, my heart, my mind, my physical self, my spiritual self, my psyche, my community, and my sense of community? Like those aspects have a richness. And how do you have an embodied curiosity within each of these aspects of the self? Yeah.
What do you think is then maybe an obstacle in general that some people would face?
So it's hard to answer a general question, except that one of the pieces that I see within myself, and just in general, is that we're afraid. We're afraid to look at ourselves. We're afraid to venture out beyond what we think we've defined as safe. And safe, you know, one can feel safe in danger because it's what you know. It doesn't mean it's safe, right?
That's true. And let me give you a specific example then, because I like that you mentioned like being afraid.
Yeah.
Because when I look back, there was a woman who wanted to make change, and she would wait until every year. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to find healthy relationships. I'm going to stop doing this. And then after Valentine's Day, she was back in the same situation. And then she endured for the rest of the year. And then come December, same thing. And I remember asking her a question. I said, what do you think is preventing you from making this promise to yourself? Because that's what we want to start calling these things, right?
Yeah.
For the full 12 months instead of just 2 months. And then she turned to me, she said, Terrain, Valentine's Day is about love. It's marketed everywhere, and I just don't see that type of love in my life. And then the second question I asked her was, so is this promise to the world because you want to impress them? Or is it a promise to yourself? And she didn't have an answer. And sometimes I think, and I'll let you get your input, when we're making these promises, is it truly a promise to ourselves? I'm doing this because I'm going to feel better, regardless if other people see it, or is it a promise to others saying that I want Edie, I want Terrain to know that I'm doing well, even though I'm dying inside?
What if it's both? What if it's for the self, but the self is so mixed up with how other people experience you that it's hard to separate it out?
And then maybe there was, I guess, connected in a sense then, right? And you can't have, some people can't have one without the other. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and of course the hope is that they eventually do find a way to disconnect those two aspects, to say, what do I think? Not based on how someone reacts to me or relates to me or being a people pleaser or a fawner, right? I'm going to I'm going to think about what it is that I need, because maybe I my happiness doesn't depend on having a significant other or having a lover. Maybe that's not where my happiness generates from. Maybe my happiness I gets generated because I've eaten a good meal, or I've had a good night's sleep, and that's what nourishes me. And maybe it's not that love relationship, but we live in a societal, cultural, like sometimes judgmental environment that says you're not whole unless you have a significant other. And that Valentine's Day, the pressures that's put on so many people for not having a significant other. What if you became your significant other? Like, and it sounds like kind of, well, yeah, of course, but no, I don't know that we necessarily think, wow, I'm going to send myself a Valentine's Day card. I'm going to write myself a love letter, because maybe the one that needs to be nurtured and loved right now is me. And that's what I need. And that, to even say that and speak to that out loud and say, I know, Terrain, I know that you want me to be connected and to have someone in my life. But you know what? I need to know how to have me first. And maybe the promise is, I'm going to spend this next year getting to know me. And that the greatest gift is me.
Do you think people truly know themselves?
How much time do we have?
We have until 2027.
Yes, right? Aren't we always evolving? Aren't we always like learning new things about ourselves based on our environments, our choices, our perhaps our jobs, or our passions, or how we are as a parent or a partner, or what makes us laugh, or how what made us laugh 10 years ago doesn't make us laugh anymore, but something else makes us chuckle or humbles us. So, do we ever know ourselves? Maybe knowing the self is knowing that we are always evolving. Maybe it's about integrating the fact that we are always in some kind of metamorphosis, and that we are alchemists, and that perhaps a goal or a promise is to understand that we come upon a lot of dirt sometimes. And how do we take that dirt and turn it into gold?
And
And maybe
sometimes,
that's the promise.
yeah, and then to your point, sometimes there's the fear that I can see that this is who I think I'm becoming. And if I were to become this person, these people over here may not be around for the journey. And I don't want to be alone because loneliness is something that so many of us don't like. So now, which pain do we choose? Do we choose the
Mm,
chaos, or do we choose which could be permanent in a lot of ways and shows up in different ways, right?
right.
Especially from a health perspective, or do we choose what I would like to say the temporal pain of loneliness? I'm going to take a year to get to know me, to value me, to love me. And when I mean love, it's more than spas. It's more than
Yes.
facials. It's more than pedicures. It's more than manicures,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you.
Right. I'm
Yes.
going to do that. But that year, I may go from 10 friends to two. Can I handle that? Can people handle that, Edie?
You know, it's on an individual basis, right? And maybe they can just handle the thought of it. And that's all they do. And they don't do anything else. They don't change anything else, but they at least had the thought. Okay? And maybe in the next 6 months, they say, okay, I'm going to try this for a week, 3 weeks, a month. I'm going to see what it's like to defuse, not diffuse, but defuse from one relationship that has gotten tricky or uncomfortable or isn't nourishing or hasn't been kind. I'm going to just see how it feels. I don't have to make a big deal out of it. I don't have to go into a big conversation around it. I'm just going to do this one little tiny piece. And I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to see what that loneliness feels like and how I sit with it, how I honor it, how I nourish myself in it. And maybe it's not that pedicure or manicure, but if you have a hot shower, maybe it's that hot shower where you have the chance to regulate the water and the heat or the cold of that water. And you make those choices in increments. This is not an all or nothing conversation, and you know that, right? So I'm going to tell a little story. So I was very aware. So I don't like to buy anything full price. I just want to say that. Okay. I love going to secondhand stores. I love getting a good deal. It's like, oh my gosh, look what I got, you know. But I realized that it was doing something to my psyche that I was going to these stores and buying stuff that I really didn't need, but I just loved the rush of the deal. And it didn't matter if I was spending $2 or 50 cents. I mean, we're not talking about high ticketed items here, okay? But I realized that I was shopping in that way and I wasn't feeling something that I might need to feel. So I made a promise to myself that I was going to stop that shopping for 1 year. 1 year. And I did. And what came up was, okay, well, I can't shop. I think I want to eat. No, I don't really want to eat. But there's something that's feeling empty, something that's feeling hungry. And what I realized, and here, I talk a lot about grief, was that it was a yearning, it was a grief that I was trying to mask unconsciously with the shopping or with food I was conscious of because I battled that. and that I needed to sit with it, and that every time I had the urge to shop, I went inward. I wrote something down. I wrote a few words down, or maybe I wrote a few sentences down. And I just continued to have the conversation with the part of me that wanted to stay awake rather than go unconscious by buying something for $2. That year extended to 2 years because I really loved being awake. And I realized that I was missing a lot by going into stores. I was missing looking around and I want to say smelling people, but like you walk and people are around you if you live in a big city, and it was like I need to feel this energy, and it came back to me in a way that my nervous system learned to calm down without needing to go to buy something for $2 and feel like I got that charge, that rush. And learning about the different places that I get hungry, and that I can be hungry in my head, I can be hungry in my heart. Yeah, I can be hungry in my belly, but a lot of times it's not hunger in my belly. It's hunger in my heart, or it's hunger in my head, or it's hunger in my feet, like I just want to run. And identifying kind of those different aspects of where the grief and the hunger is. And that was my process for 2 years. And it was awakening. And it was coming home to the self. So I took a very long time to answer that question. But
No, but I'm glad that you shared that example because it's relatable, especially when we have to give up something that was a part of us for who knows how long. Like you mentioned that you were doing it for a year, then it turned into 2 years. I discovered online shopping 2 years ago. I went 38 years without
it's a
online
long time.
shopping. A long time. Granted, like when I was under 10, I wasn't really doing a lot of online shopping, but I always got like my mother, my father, or family member, or even close friends. I'd give them money, say, hey, can you buy me X? And when they asked why, I was like, don't worry about it. I just don't do online shopping. I went online shopping for 2 years ago. All of a sudden, there was things that I needed. Even though prior to this,
You
I didn't need these things, right? I
didn't need them.
redecorated 2 bathrooms and a living room through online shopping. I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe what was going on. And then I said to myself, okay, I need to detox. I need to get rid of this. So I stopped. But the beautiful thing that I found out about myself was two things. One, my bathroom does look beautiful now, by the way.
I'm
I'll send you
sure it
pictures.
does.
And
Please do.
two, if you want to do something, especially if it's, let's say, time consuming or just something in general, right? That can be served as a distraction. You could find it. And I think that was my distraction because I was trying to understand myself and pivot in a lot of ways. And I think that was my outlet now that I look back, right? But I did learn that as quickly as you can start doing it, you can hopefully find the resolve to do. But to your point, there was like a grievance because I'm like, oh, I kind of like that terrain that was doing online shopping, but I had to take a step back because one, you're spending money that on things that you want that's necessarily a need. And as we both share these examples, Edie, are these things then distractions or is it just something that helps us to learn about ourselves and then we move on?
Maybe again, I feel like I'm giving you a non-answer But maybe they're both. It's a distraction, and and then for some people, you do it and then you move on and you're done, right? And you had that experience. And sometimes we need distractions. And do those distractions help us, or do they just cumulatively add to a greater distress?
Similar to like when someone eats their problems.
Yeah, eats their problems, right? Did you actually taste that food? How, no, probably not. You know, if you're just wanting to swallow the emotions. So it's like before I'm going to go and have that snack, it's like, what am I thinking about? What am I feeling? What's going on in my body right now? Am I wanting something salty? Am I wanting something sweet? Like, am I bored? What is boredom? Um, and, or am I lonely? Am I afraid? Am I anxious? Am I numb and I just want to try to feel something? And again, that goes back into that kind of embodied curiosity, to take a pause and to be curious about what's going on and how you're feeling. And to ask yourself, like, actually imagine that you're your best bud and you're curious. And you're like, how you doing? How's it going? How you feeling? You know, is that sweater too tight or does it feel just right? You know, um, it's like, how do my shoulders feel? How does my jaw feel right now? And it sounds like, oh, I'm not gonna do any of this, and yeah, you probably won't. But what if you just did one thing and just said, I'm worth checking in with? And every time you ask a friend, so how you doing? Ask yourself the same question. How am I doing? Really? Like, we say, hi, how are you? And how do we usually respond?
I'm okay.
Yeah. You think it's the truth most of the time?
Absolutely not.
What do you think the truth is most of the time?
They're not okay.
Hmm.
Or some people don't even know.
That's it. That's it. And what would happen if we actually started to have some safe people who we could really tell the truth to? And that we actually make an agreement with that person. Like, we say, hey, how are you? But we have a deeper relationship than just, hey, how you doing? What if we actually told the truth? Because I really actually want to know how you are. And I'm hoping that you really want to know how I am. And what if you just do that with one person and see what that's like? Or to even say to somebody you care about, when you say, hey, how are you? And they go, oh, I'm fine. And it's like, no, how are you? Because I really want to know. I think, if we actually took more time being curious not only about ourselves, but about one other person, it might help us feel less lonely.
Someone once shared to me that the reason why they don't tell the truth is because they believe no one cares.
Isn't that sad?
Heartbreaking, Edie.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. Devastating. And that's grief. Okay? That's grief. We think of grief as only the loss of a loved one, But when, we started this conversation talking about letting go and figuring out what you're going to let go of and what you're going to keep, right? And how you do that. Well, if someone feels like no one cares, it is like a loss of personal identity. It's a loss of social identity. And it's even a loss of sexual identity. I'm not talking gender. I'm just talking about the driver that most of us are born with, which is that sexual driver that gives us passion, that gives us the desire to achieve, or the desire or ability to care. That's what I'm talking about.
It's unfortunate when someone reaches that point, and I did an experiment, and this is anecdotal in nature, where I committed to myself that every single person I interacted with, I think it was maybe, I want to say the spring of 2025 to the summer, I would ask them, "How are you doing?" And then they would give me the answer. If they gave me the answer that was, "I'm okay, all right," something like that, which is pretty much the basic answer that many people give, I would follow up and ask them, "What makes your day just okay?" Or what
Mm-hmm.
makes you just okay?
Mm-hmm.
Every single person had to think about it. Every single person giggled. It was like that nervous laugh,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Because now they got to think
Yeah.
about the answer that they gave me. And the majority of the people struggled to tell me why their day was okay. And then they would turn around and ask me, I was like, "My day is good." And they would ask me, and I would give them reasons why my day is good.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting from that perspective to see that, to your point, some people are just saying it to say it because when you challenge them or when you dig deeper, they don't
When you
even
are
know why.
curious, when you actually go into the curiosity that they're not even having necessarily for themselves. Okay. Yeah.
100%. Like, why do you think people will give an answer that maybe they don't either believe or they don't know why they're giving that answer, such as, "I'm okay, but I don't know why I'm just okay."
What if there's no sense it couldn't get any better? What if
Meaning they're in a
there's,
position where it literally is okay and they don't know how to get out of it.
or that there's no hope that it could be anything other than okay, that okay is the best it can be. It's almost the baseline. And hmm, that's maybe somewhere along the line their dreams got thwarted, okay? And that they haven't been able to imagine anything else. Like, and it's sad, but I think that it happens to so many children that they're pigeonholed into a role. You're going to go to college, you're not going to go to college, you're going to, you're not going to amount to anything. And really those are messages of neglect and apathy and grief, right? um, you're growing up in, you know, a a low socioeconomic environment, and there are challenges, and you'd better just accept this rather than think there could be more. And the dream, whatever dreams they might have had, aren't supported or mm, mm, they have no one to dream with. And frankly, it doesn't, it happens to, you know we see it in the media. We see children of famous people feeling like they can't have their own dreams. So it, it runs the gamut wherever you are, whatever your education is, that we all have the potential to have our dreams taken away. And how do we find a way to recover? How do we get to our senses of personal identity and social identity and sexual identity? And it's like, if you can have one person who can tell you that your passions are worth it, if you can listen to one podcast, or you can just look at the sky and see the vastness of the universe, or decide that you're going to concentrate on the animals that you see in the course of a day or a month, even if it's a kitten or a dog that cocks its head in a certain way and it makes you smile, that you find ways to generate enthusiasm and passion and life.
So are we grieving then our personal, social, and sexual identities then?
Without even knowing it? Yeah. Yes. Yes. There was something in you that said, I need to change things up. Whatever that was, it's not for us to necessarily discuss here, okay? You have your reasons. But the thing is that you came to those reasons like your birthright. And you had ownership of those reasons. And if we can somehow learn that we have a birthright to knowing ourselves and not letting other people tell us who we are, we can be informed by them, but rather than just being informed, that we can say, is this true for me or isn't this true for me? Do I need to agree with this person to survive? Okay, but understand this is how I'm surviving. It doesn't mean it's who I really am. We make choices for a lot of reasons. So I see you thinking and processing. I'm wondering what's going on.
When you mentioned what I was going through, I needed to reclaim myself. I felt that I was losing a part of me and I couldn't give that up. Because if I were to give up that part of me, it would take me back to the 20-year-old terrain where I had no control. And seeing that in the mirror of life being reflected on the foreheads of all these people that was creating chaos, right? Because some people tend to forget, like people enter our lives to show us what we no longer want to be,
Yes.
right? They're projecting it. So it's our choice to say that I don't want to be the person. It doesn't mean you hate them. There's nothing, they may
No,
be
no, no,
good
no, no.
people,
That's right.
right? They're just
That's
a
right.
reflection of a part of us that we either healed, moved on from, or something else,
That's right.
right? So when I saw that now, I was like, okay, you guys have served you've served your time in my life. It's time for me to move on. So now, as we talk about this and we speak about letting go and letting in, I had to let go of that. I had to let myself in again, right? And I think sometimes we miss that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have so many questions. Because when you said I have to let myself in again, I I'm also hearing, though, when you say again, then what I hear you saying is that there was a part of you that you knew and lost and wanted to get back to him. and that there was that time when somehow he was taken away from you, almost without you knowing, by people who were framing you in a certain way, and you were giving them, you were acquiescing to their frame. I, I, it seems that people, the lucky ones, have an old frame that they remember and they want to get back to because it's it's who they know themselves to be. It's their truer selves, right? And we are all born with that true self. How it's taken away systematically by the system, perhaps, by the families that we grow up in and grow out of and perhaps grow away from. Um, and maybe we don't know that we know who we are until we want to go back to something that we recognize. I know this is very philosophical. It's kind of like we're going, it's a little bit of a tangent here. So I want to just take a step back for one moment. It was just what you said about I needed to go back. So I think that we're all born with a knowing. And that knowing is, for me, it's the little Buddha. Okay, it's seeing the world and seeing the kindness through eyes that are innocent, and we're born with an innocence. We don't come out of the womb not having that innocence, but surely it is taken away. Sometimes incrementally, sometimes in one big fell swoop. And the idea and the notion of getting back to is like getting back to innocence, getting back to something within us that says, wow, I want to know how this works, and I want to I want to be able to be the explorer, and I want to be an alchemist, and I want to have delight in seeing a baby cry, or seeing a turtle cross the road, or hearing birds, or whatever, or sadly we're living in a world where there's a lot of violence. I'd love to know what it's like not to hear gunshots, you know. I'd like to know what it's like to go to bed and know that all the people I love are still going to be alive. I mean, so it's going to be environmental, and everyone is different, okay? So but to go back to an innocence could also be about going back to a wisdom and generating a wisdom of, okay, I may have been born into something, but it doesn't mean I can't grow because of it and leave it, but know that as I leave it, I carry it with me. And it continues to evolve in me, but I don't have to be affected by it because it's not helping me anymore. I, I don't know. I just kind of went off on that. But
No, you touched on it because since we last spoke, my grandmother who raised me passed away. So I was no longer, let me rephrase that. To the world, I may not have been my grandmother's child anymore because she's not here. So there was an identity shift. So when I said I had to reclaim myself again, that's what I had to reclaim because now I'm asking myself, if she's not here, am I still this? And the answer is yes, just in
Yeah,
a different way,
that's right.
right? From the
Mm.
physical to the spiritual. You know, I've talked about this. This is what
Yeah,
you and I believe,
that's right.
right? Some people may not believe it. When you're gone, you're gone. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
For me, when someone passes away, they go from the physical state, I can touch them with my hands, to the spiritual, energetic state where I can touch them with my emotions.
Absolutely. And
That's
they
the
come
difference, right?
through. They come through.
Exactly. So the conversations I'm having now, instead of in my mind, I may have them to myself, but I know that she's listening, right? So during that whole 2025, there was a shift because I was put in a position to understand that difference. And I was like, I'm still the same terrain. It's just this person that was a big part of my life. Now they may not be able to stand in front of me with the physical body, but you rest assured they're still beside me
You
in the
bet they
energetic
are.
one,
You bet they are,
right?
John.
Yeah, so that's the clarity I wanted to give when it became to reclaim that. So when you mentioned everything that you're mentioning, that's exactly what it was.
Mm. Mm. I have to tell you, when you just said that your grandmother passed, I welled up here. I feel such deep emotion around that. You know, our our um our elders are so important, you know. And I was very close with my grandmother, my mom's mom. And her name was Fanny. And she was she lost her sight, and she was an artist. And when she lost her sight, she would paint with her peripheral vision, because she still had her peripheral vision. And when she lost that, she took up macrame. And she taught me about being resilient. And so that resilience is from my head to my toe. And so those elders, those grandparents, that your grandmother, she's here now, right? And she will always have her hand on your back. And you're very lucky to have that imprint. And I think sometimes the the loss is real, but the imprint of her is also real, and she never leaves. She never leaves. My relationship with my mother was very complicated, and yet, and we argued all of the time. I mean, we argued all of the time. Okay. But I would give anything to have one more argument with her and see if I have developed any greater skills in dealing with how I argued. Because I certainly have worked on the anger of, of uh, resulting from the childhood that I had. And I think that we grow. We grow. We grow with the people we've lost, even though they're not here. They're forever in our heads. They're forever in our hearts, and their energies are forever around us. Period.
Yeah, and that's a hard truth about starting over is the journey doesn't end. And what I did is it wasn't necessarily starting over. I would say it was maybe like a soft reset where it's like, okay, let's take a moment to understand who am I and how I want to maintain this legacy. Because to your point, the imprint is so profound, it's so beautiful, it's something that you want to share. I just took that energy, wrapped myself in it, and repackaged me. Now I was fully energized, like a car battery, right? You just
Yeah,
jump it and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm revved, I'm ready to
yeah.
go.
Here we are. Let's do it. Right?
Here we are, right? So
Yeah.
I hope that every single person who experiences grief, whether it's a loss of a person, loss of identity, loss of whatever, that you take that moment and you re-energize yourself, because especially when it's someone that was so close to you, like you and I just discussed,
Yes.
their energy's inside you, doesn't ever leave, right? Like you're going to miss them. You may continue life without acknowledging them every day like it was brand new, but the thing is, every step that you take, you're now walking in pairs. Now you're walking in threes. Now you're walking in fours. You'd be totally, totally surprised. So when it comes to grief identity,
Hmm.
from your perspective, and I can share mine as well, what are some of the emotions that you went through? Or what are some of the emotions that you see people go through?
So let's be really clear here. Okay. Once you've stepped into knowing the partnership of grief, you're always partnering with it. And I say always because, and I rarely say always, but it's there, and it frames us, and it visits with us, and it visits in at times that we least expect it to come in and drop in and filter through our hearts and our guts. So, there's this kind of missing that I hear people talk about, where if only I could talk, because it's what I just said actually, if only I could share this, talk to, have a conversation with the one I lost. If only I could hear them respond. If only I could feel their touch on my shoulder, on my back, give me a hug. If only I could share something funny with them. And it's about the human quality of a relationship. If only I could have one more fight, you know. Okay, so it wasn't perfect. And it is that missing of the interaction, of the intimacy, of the sense that they knew you better than anyone else. And they could read your eyes. And they could read the set of your jaw. And it's a, a grief of having someone know you without words.
I wonder, and I know some people will hear that they're spending too much time and energy thinking about these things. And I think I'm on the other side where I said that spend more time, spend more energy, create that legacy for them, because they created a legacy within you,
That's right.
within me, within you, within everyone else.
That's right.
And when it comes to grief identity, that's something that I want to help so many people with, because I know what it feels like. And it's not only the loss of someone, it's your partner gets pregnant and you have a miscarriage and you're expecting to be a parent, and now you're not a parent anymore. Maybe you told everyone around you. There was that six-figure job that used to work 8, 10, 12, 14 hours, and now your hands are numb, your legs don't work as well, so now you have to give it up. There's grief and loss of that.
You bet.
There's my relationship has ended, my marriage has ended. Now I'm no longer a husband or wife or a common law partner. Your social status has changed. There's a grief of that. We can experience grief in so many different ways
So many different
every
ways.
single day.
That's right.
What are some of the tips? What are some of the practices that can help people along during those times?
Well, the one thing we want to do often is avoid it. And when you avoid something, it just gets bigger. It's kind of like anxiety. The more you try to push it away, the bigger it gets. So when you start to miss that person or miss that job or grieve that pet or you're at a holiday, festive environment and, there's someone missing at the table, acknowledge it. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore the feelings that come up. Tell the stories you need to tell. Whether it's, I really miss that job. I really, miss going into an office every day, or I miss my grandmother, and let me tell you a story, and let me mention her name, and let me tell you about her. And and it is bringing to life that which is gone because we're living with them in real time even when they're gone, and we're living with our losses, all of the losses that you mentioned, all of those losses, whether it is job loss or it's partner loss or it's a miscarriage or it's the loss that happens to us as we age. We have the developmental losses. We have losses where we think that that date is going to go well and it doesn't, but all of our hopes and dreams were mixed up in that date, in a single date. Frankly, sometimes a bad haircut can cause grief, maybe because of a history of something that happened to you when you were younger. And and then there's the grief of trauma. And I think we I don't want to leave this conversation without honoring the people who've, you know, witnessed or experienced a sexually traumatic predatory event. Okay? We must. Because 80% of the population has had something that they've either witnessed or experienced, and it's underreported. And sadly, with all due respect, men it's definitely underreported with men, and it's underreported within the black and brown communities. It just is. And I know I'm a cisgendered white woman saying this, but if I don't say it, then I'm not being honest here. So I truly, to you and to your audience, it's just we need to talk about this stuff because it's very real, and there's so much grief that is unspoken around either witnessing, because by proxy you can experience the sense of abuse even if you witnessed it and didn't experience it directly. So I just want to say that there's incredible grief and loss of self when you've had to keep secrets. And having to keep a secret can create that loss of personal, social, and sexual identity because you go into hiding. And because you can't show up as yourself because you're hiding and you're keeping secrets. So we've taught, so try to find one person who is safe where you can share a secret with, who you can share a secret with, or the secrets. Find some safe people, find a therapist, find a pastor who you might feel comfortable talking to. Exercise. I cannot tell you the importance of exercise for mental health, even if it's 10 minutes a day, okay? 10 minutes. And you say, even if you say, listen, I don't have the money to like join a health club. Screw a health club. Go buy 2 5-pound packages of sugar and lift the 5 pounds of sugar. Okay? We're not talking about having to break a bank. That exercise actually changes the brain. And what we want to do is we want to help your brain change. And so that exercise is important. Not being silent is important. And find creative outlets, whether it's writing or reading or drawing. You can get crayons. You can get a set of crayons, I think, for $2.99, and paper, and draw. And even if it's just like you're drawing and it just looks like chaos, good. You're taking that which is in and you're taking it and you're moving it out. I love having people draw a circle like a face and put words onto that mask and all the things that you're feeling. All the things that you're feeling. I have a journal. It's on Amazon. It's called It's Grief Notes to Self. It's a 3-month journal, and what's cool about the journal is at the end of the book there are 5 pages of emotions, descriptive words, because we often can't find the words to describe what we're feeling. And so the words are there to help you get beyond I'm sad, I'm angry, or I feel joy, because there are so many layers to our emotions, and to honor all those many layers. And so those are some ways to help find expression to the honesty of your grief, and of letting go, and of taking in, and of going back to that innocent time where there was a Buddha, probably in all of our lives, that just saw the world through golden eyes and said, wow, this is really cool.
I love that you mentioned the mental health and to take moment to practice that and to strengthen it, because I'm a firm believer of the 4 pillars of health, right? The physical, the spiritual. Those are the two everyone knows. Physical, you go to the gym. Spiritual, a lot of people associate with religion. The emotional and the mental health, we tend to forget, because those are the ones many times only we can feel and see, where other people can't see us. And you probably heard
Absolutely.
of the emotional scars of grief and things like that, right?
Of course, absolutely. And can I add a 5th pillar? Do you mind?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That 5th pillar is socialization and community. Because what we know in terms of aging, in terms of mental health, when you are social, when you have community, your outcomes are so much better.
Yeah, and with that said, Edie, final question for you. You mentioned stories, and I love that you mentioned the stories. I'm going to give you 3 wishes. What are 3 things you wish people knew about the impact of stories of people that we may have lost? We want to make sure that we don't forget them.
So, our sense of smell actually brings us the closest to our memories. And so, I would love to see people tell stories of their holidays, or when they baked cookies, or when they cooked with a family member or a friend, because those stories bring us close to our hearts and close to mm, intimacy. And when I say intimacy, it's into me you see. So, my one wish is remember those times, even if it was one time when you did something that was collaborative with one family member or friend, or you had your dog around. I mean, you know, our famous family story about our dog Fanny was we had a ham on the counter with cloves, and we all left the room, and she knocked the ham down. She ate the entire ham but spit out the cloves. And that's the story of my wonderful dog Fanny. And so remember those stories. And did I lose Fanny? Yeah. And do I remember her? Yeah. And I love telling that story. And it brings chills to me. And it made you smile. And it brought you home to me a little bit. And I was able to share my home with you. So that's one wish. Find ways to bring your home not only to yourself but to others so that they can have an insight. So that's one wish. Another wish for story is to use the names of the people you loved and lost, or the job you loved and lost, or the animal you loved and lost, or the survival of something that you never thought you would survive, and tell the story and let people know of your resilience. That's my second wish in story. And the third wish is fairy tales. We all know fairy tales, and think about a fairy tale that meant a lot to you and share it. Or a superhero story that you really loved and share it and don't forget it, because our fairy tales and our children's stories must thrive within us as adults because they make their imprints, and we don't have to not not carry the child in us that is alive and may have grieved as children and may have had losses as children and may have had strife as children. But we also had some stories